The Beats generation is a literary and cultural movement that emerged in the late 1940s and flourished in the 50s and 60s. This discussion is based on four critics: Ozan Selçuk in the Beat generation in social cultural context, Anton Pokrivčák in American literature of the 20th century, modernism and after, Leslie Bow and Russ Castronovo in the Oxford Handbook of 20th Century American Literature, and Arnold Weinstein's Classics of American Literature lectures. Each of these critics emphasizes different aspects of the Beats. Selçuk highlights the Beats as a countercultural movement shaped by post-war American society. Pokrivčák situates them in literary history as successors to modernism, but with their own radical break. Bow and Castronovo stress the Beats' impact on cultural politics, identity, and the canon. Weinstein offers close readings of writers like Kerouac, Ginsberg, and Burroughs. Together, these critics show us how the Beats transformed American literature and culture. This cover image is Robert Frank's The Americans of 1958, with Kerouac's introduction, which visually embodies the Beats' fascination with American landscape, people, and restless travel. Selçuk emphasizes that the Beat generation must be understood in its post-war context. After World War II, the United States entered a period of prosperity, suburban growth, and Cold War conformity. This prosperity, however, produced cultural anxieties, fears of nuclear war, pressures of consumerism, and a stifling sense of sameness. The Beats emerged as a rebellion against this environment. They rejected materialism, challenged authority, and sought authenticity. Youth rebellion was central. The Beats became role models for a younger generation disillusioned with conventional paths. Pokrivčák situates the Beats as literary heirs to modernism, but also innovators in style and theme. They draw on jazz improvisation, Buddhist spirituality, and spontaneity of expression, while pushing language and form into new territory. Together, Selçuk and Pokrivčák showed that the Beats were both culturally reactive, responding to conformity and fear, and creatively innovative, inventing new modes of writing and being. This 1950s photo of Levittown suburbia, the first suburbia in America, illustrates the conformity and consumerism against which the Beats rebelled, as our authors emphasize. Weinstein highlights three central figures of the Beats generation: Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, and William S. Burroughs. Kerouac's On the Road became the defining Beat novel, celebrating freedom, travel, and rebellion. Ginsberg's Howl shocked readers with its explicit sexuality and critique of American society, while also creating a new poetic language. Burroughs' Naked Lunch pushed boundaries even further, with experimental style and taboo subject matters. Selçuk reminds us that the Beats were not only individuals but also a group identity. The term Beat generation itself became a cultural myth, symbolizing rebellion, freedom, and anti-establishment values. Through their friendships, performances, and travels, the Beats cultivated an image that extended beyond literature into popular culture. Weinstein and Selçuk show that the Beats were at once literary innovators and cultural icons, shaping American identity in mid-century. This is Ginsberg's first performance of Howl in 1955, illustrating Weinstein's point about the Beats' oral, performative energy and their gathering of like-minded rebels. Selçuk identifies central themes of the Beat generation: a rejection of materialism and conformity, a search for spiritual depth, and an embrace of unconventional lifestyles. The Beats critiqued consumer culture, arguing that it produced shallow lives and hollow identities. They turned instead to alternative sources of meaning, including Buddhism and other Eastern philosophies, which emphasized impermanence, meditation, and a critique of Western rationalism. Pokrivčák emphasizes that the Beats experimented not only with ideas, but also with form and style. Their writing embraced spontaneity, open form, and improvisation, modeled on jazz. Drugs, sexuality, and taboo subjects became part of literature, not hidden from it. For the Beats, literature was not separate from life. It was lived experience, written directly onto the page. In this sense, beat writing collapses the distance between art and life, making literature a mode of existence. These themes position the Beats as radical voices in their cultural movement. John Coltrane, Thelonious Monk, and their band at this five-spot cafe capture the improvisational spirit of jazz that so deeply influenced beat writing, embodying the spontaneity and rhythm Selçuk and Pokrivčák describe. Weinstein presents On the Road as the Beat Manifesto. For Kerouac, travel becomes a metaphor for freedom, possibility, and discovery. The novel celebrates spontaneity, improvisation, and restlessness. Characters drive across America, searching for meaning, rejecting stable jobs and suburban life. Weinstein stresses that this restlessness is double-edged. It's a source of energy and creativity, but also of despair, emptiness, and endless searching. Kerouac's style mirrors this experience. His language is loose, flowing, improvisational, modeled on jazz rhythms. On the Road was celebrated by young readers as a call for freedom, but criticized by others as irresponsible. For Weinstein, Kerouac's achievement is to capture a cultural moment, a generation both restless and hopeful, yet unable to find lasting satisfaction. The novel embodies the contradictions of the beat ethos, freedom and emptiness, rebellion and longing. Weinstein reads Allen Ginsberg's Howl as both protest and prophecy. The poem denounces American society as a destructive force. Moloch, a devouring monster of materialism, war, and depression. At the same time, it celebrates those who resist, outsiders, addicts, madmen, and visionaries. Ginsberg gives voice to the marginalized, making poetry a collective cry of rebellion. His frank exploration of sexuality and madness shocked 1950s audiences, but also liberated literature from censorship and repression. Weinstein highlights the performative aspect of Howl. It was meant to be read aloud, to build community, to become a ritual of resistance. In this way, Ginsberg redefined poetry as a public act of protest and solidarity. Howl is both a denunciation of Americans' failures and a visionary affirmation of alternative ways of living. For Weinstein, it remains one of the most powerful protest poems in American literature. Weinstein turns to William S. Burroughs in his novel Naked Lunch, which is one of the most controversial beat texts. Burroughs pushed literature into experimental and shocking territory, breaking with conventional narrative. He explored taboo subjects, addiction, homosexuality, violence, with frankness and intensity that challenged both censorship and literary norms. His use of the cut-up technique and fragmented structure created a text that defied linear reading, producing instead a disorienting collage. Weinstein emphasizes that Burroughs used shock not only for sensation, but as disruption, to break the complacency of readers and society. Naked Lunch exemplifies the beat conviction that literature must go beyond polite boundaries to confront the realities of human experience. It represents the most radical side of the beats, where art becomes disruption, resistance, and shock therapy. For Weinstein, Burroughs shows the outer edge of beat experimentation, expanding what American literature could be. Bow and Castronovo emphasized the beat's broader cultural and political impact. The Beats were a countercultural movement that prefigured the rebellions of the 1960s, civil rights activism, anti-war protest, feminism, and the counterculture. They opened space for new conversations about sexuality, identity, and multiculturalism. Their embrace of queer voices, non-Western religions, and marginalized perspectives expanded the scope of American literature and challenged the boundaries of the canon. At the same time, critics have accused the Beats of self-indulgence, romanticizing marginality, and appropriating non-Western traditions without responsibility. Bow and Castronovo insist that these contradictions are part of the legacy. The Beats were both liberating and problematic, expanding horizons while also raising questions about representation and ethics. Their significance lies in their influence. They helped redefine American literature as open, plural, and experimental. The Beats thus mark a turning point in cultural politics and literary history. This photo of a 1960s free speech movement at UC Berkeley illustrates Bow and Castronovo's argument that the Beats paved the way for later countercultural and activist movements, linking literary rebellion with broader social protest. To conclude, the Beat generation was both a literary movement and a cultural rebellion. Selçuk shows how it grew out of post-war conformity and fear. Pokrivčák situates it in literary history, connecting it to modernist experiments while highlighting its originality. Weinstein focuses on the major writers, Kerouac, Ginsberg, and Burroughs, to show how each redefined literature in style, theme, and form. Bow and Castronovo broaden the picture, demonstrating the Beats' impact on culture, politics, and identity. These critics show us that the Beats were not only rebels, but also innovators, shaping both American literature and cultural history. Their themes of freedom, spirituality, sexuality, and disruption continue to resonate, while their contradiction between liberation and self-indulgence, inspiration and appropriation, keep them relevant for discussion. The Beat generation was more than a group of writers. It was a way of imagining literature as life itself, a radical rethinking of what it meant to be American. To symbolize their lasting influence, I have this photo of the City Lights bookstore in San Francisco. The bookstore was founded in 1953 by poet and publisher Loris Ferlinghetti. City Lights became a hub of beat culture and the first all-paperback bookstore in the United States. It still thrives today, a living testament to the Beat's commitment to free expression, alternative voices, and cultural community.